Hi everybody, Matt back with you. Hope you're okay. Today I'm in a place called Roundhay Park, which is a picturesque corner of Leeds city centre. And this particular part is called Soldiers Field. And it's a big, huge stretch of grassland used for, as you can see, rugby. There are football goalposts scattered about, so it's quite a popular place. Unfortunately though, it has been the scene of unspeakable horrors. Today we are looking at the third victim of the Yorkshire Ripper. We have covered two of the victims before, and now we're on to the third. So I'll explain the story as we head round the park. So our story begins Saturday, 8th of May 1976. It revolves around Marcella Claxton, a 20-year-old who'd been out drinking with friends at a party in Chapeltown. At 4 AM the Sunday morning, she decided to walk home to her house on Roundhay Road. Fortunately for her, at the same time, it just so happened to be one of those nights that Peter Sutcliffe was on the lookout. Accepting a lift because she was quite worse for wear and it being 4 AM in the morning, Marcella got in Sutcliffe's car and he drove them both to Soldiers Field at Roundhay Park. Whilst in the car, Sutcliffe had offered Marcella £5 for sex. Apparently she refused. Now, because they were in the field near the toilet block, she got out to go for a wee essentially. The toilets were shut, so instead she crouched down on the field to urinate. Sutcliffe got out of his car with a hammer. He dropped it almost immediately. Marcella jokingly said, "I hope that's not a knife." "No, just my wallet," said Sutcliffe, but crept towards her anyway. He then smashed Marcella's head 9 times with the hammer. Marcella on the floor. Sutcliffe then masturbated over her, put £5 in her hand, got back in the car and drove away. blood pouring from the wounds in her head, Marcella came to and crawled to the nearest phone box and dialed 999. She slumped to the floor of the phone box, was utterly terrified when she noticed a white car slowly drive past. However, the car kept going, but it did pull into the same spot on Soldiers Field. Sutcliffe had come back to make sure the job was finished, but she wasn't there. Marcella required 52 stitches in her head, an extensive brain surgery. She was able to confidently describe her attacker, a young white man with crinkly black hair and a beard, a Yorkshire accent, and driving a white car with red interior. However, police did not link this attack to the Yorkshire Ripper at the time. Sadly, Leeds police in the 1970s was rife with racism, and an abhorrent remark by a police officer that Marcella was just this side of a gorilla showed how serious police took the case at the time. So despite suffering the catastrophic injuries, Marcella did survive. Today, as of recording, she is either 67 or 68 years old and has children and grandchildren, and I hope wherever she is in the world she found happiness and managed to put some of those dark days behind her. I imagine they probably never left. But if only the police had actually listened to her, because just a few months later, at exactly the same point, there was another scene of unspeakable horror. A Soldiers Field became the location of a murder, and this murder was the one that saw Peter Sutcliffe move from being just a murderer to a serial killer. Three murders over time make a serial killer. Before that, it's just a murderer, or if there's lots at once, it's a killing spree. February 1977, Irene Richardson became the third victim of Peter Sutcliffe. Irene Richardson was a 28-year-old sex worker from Leeds. She was down on her luck, she was homeless, she was penniless, and would often be spotted on the street corners in the area where she had occasionally lived. And she was stopping for a while with friends, and one night, the 5th of February, she told them she was off to Tiffany's Disco and Pub for the night. On the way, she walked past the Gaiety Pub, which happened to be also the location that the Ripper had picked up his second victim. Richardson got into Sutcliffe's car quite willingly, and once again offering to show him a good time, and driven to Soldiers Field. Almost a repeat of 9 months previous, Richardson asked to get out of the car to use the toilets. Finding them locked, she also crouched down on the field to urinate. Sutcliffe this time got out of the car with not just a hammer, but a knife as well. He smashed her on the head 3 times. Said that her skull lodged itself 3/4 of an inch into her brain. He threw her down further onto the floor, ripped open her jacket and her blouse, and started a frenzied stabbing attack into her neck, her throat, and her stomach and chest. Disturbed by voices from the nearby apartment block, and seeing lights from a car in the driveway, Sutcliffe threw Irene Richardson's coat over her body, jumped into his car and drove away. 7:30 a.m. the next morning, a jogger was on Soldiers Field and saw the body on the ground. Thinking at first maybe she was ill, he went up to her asking her if she was okay. Not getting a response, he pulled the hair back from her face and saw Irene Richardson was dead. The authorities were soon on the scene. This is an insanely large field and I haven't quite reached the end yet. Looking for about 10 minutes. It's incredibly well kept. However, the location for today is just ahead of me now. So this area in Roundhay Park is Soldiers Field, and up amongst the trees here next to this building is where both Marcella Claxton was attacked and Irene Richardson was murdered. The building, I'm not sure if it has previously existed as a toilet block or if there was a toilet block here before, but both women got out to go to the toilet when they were in this position on the field. 2 acts of extreme violence in one space in a 9-month period. And the location here by the trees is where the body of Irene Richardson was found by the jogger. The Ripper, though, did leave his first clue here for the police. There were tyre marks on the ground where he had sped away in his car. Those tyres were linked to 26 possible types of car, which limited it to 100,000 vehicles in West Yorkshire alone. The flats that the Ripper had spotted the car from was Lakeview Court, literally just across a road. In a horrific coincidence, this was also the home of Jimmy Savile. The notorious predator lived here from the 1970s onwards. So Savile died in his penthouse flat here, aged 84, on the 29th of October 2011, 2 days off his birthday. And if you work that out, that means that Savile, yes, was born on Halloween. Very apt. It is perhaps unsurprising that in the wake of the Savile scandal and the close proximity to the murder, people started to make those connections between Savile and Sutcliffe. Was he involved? Now, Savile became friends with Sutcliffe when Sutcliffe was in jail and did the infamous fix-it for Sutcliffe to meet Frank Bruno, his boxing hero. Not a TV show, that one, of course. It's only natural those rumours began. However, we must point out there was no hard evidence to suggest he was. In terms of his flat, it was bought by a neighbour in the property and completely demolished 2 years later. So Savile's flat is no longer here, and I'm sure the people who live here, if they were around when Savile was here, would prefer to move on, and that is why I'm not filming any closer. Yeah, these are quite tricky stories to cover, aren't they? If you're interested in our videos on the Yorkshire Ripper's victims, please search for these titles on YouTube on my channel. Okay, so that is our visit to Roundhay Park in Leeds. Absolutely stunning location, and one you should visit if you haven't already. It is a shame that it just has that dark cloud over it from events from nearly 50 years ago, and the fact there is a connection with not just one, but two very evil men from history. However, let's not forget what the video is about. Those monsters are gone and where they should be. Like our other videos, this one is dedicated to the victims and their family and friends. You think of Marcella Claxton, who survived the attack, but faced racism in her fight for justice, and has spent 50 years living with the scars. And of course we remember Irene Richardson, who now rests in a cemetery in Blackpool. Her children were put up for adoption after her murder in 1977. Rest in peace, Irene. You will never be forgotten, and I hope your family have found peace in the years since. The plan is to cover all of the victims of the Ripper in the months ahead, so why not like the video, share the video, and then subscribe so you don't miss out on the ones still to come. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon.